Thanks for staying with us on the conversation. We move now to developments in North Africa, where the Human Rights Watch has accused Tunisian security forces of committing severe abuses against black African migrants. According to the Human Rights Watch, over 20 migrants and asylum seekers interviewed since March reported experiencing human rights violations at the hands of Tunisian authorities. Some were among the approximately 1,200 black Africans forcibly transferred to desert border regions. The Human Rights Watch calls on the European Union to suspend migration control funding to Tunisia until a human rights impact assessment is conducted.
Now, with respect to black Africans, Tunisia is neither a safe place for disembarkation of third country nationals intercepted or rescued at sea, nor a safe third country for transfers of asylum seekers, says Human Rights Watch. They have documented various abuses, including beatings, use of excessive force, some cases of torture, arbitrary arrest and detention, collective expulsions, dangerous actions at sea, forced evictions and theft of money and belongings. Tunisia has been urged to carry out reforms to respect human rights and end racial discrimination. Now, join us tonight on this discussion. We have Bilal Farat, Human Rights Program Coordinator at Al Balsala in the Tunisian capital, Tunis. We also have Firas Sinjab, a researcher in migration studies. He also joins from Tunis in Tunisia. A warm welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to start with you, Bilal. How concerning are the findings by Human Rights Watch regarding the abuses against black African migrants by Tunisian security forces, and what potential impact could this have on Tunisia's international standing and relations with the European Union?
The findings by the Human Rights Watch are deeply concerning. We have seen abuses targeting black African migrants by all kinds of Tunisian security apparatuses, from police to border control and even the Coastal Guard. There have been physical, emotional abuse, arbitrary arrestations, as you've mentioned, and detentions. The Coastal Guard have actively harassed migrant ships, sometimes causing them to flip, and played a huge role in preventing these asylum seekers from reaching European shores. Also, we're witnessing a mass exodus on the Libyan-Tunisian and the Algerian-Tunisian borders, two countries that have been previously designated as extremely not safe for migrants, and that are notoriously known for the disregard of human rights when it comes to migrants and asylum seekers. Sorry. The 1,200 black Africans expelled or forcibly transferred by the Tunisian security forces at the land borders of Libya and Algeria have no food, no water, and it's their case is very alarming because we have witnessed deaths on the border. We have witnessed cases of violence against them. And what makes it worse is that it looks like it's systematic and it has been sanctioned by the highest levels of governance inside the Tunisian governing bodies. Concerning the international community, we have seen Tunisia being downgraded by Civicus by the beginning of this year to repressed, which is the second worst grading you could get. So it's obvious that the international community have been witnessing Tunisia's regression into dictatorship and its violation of human rights. But sadly, we haven't seen any concrete steps by the international community to actually tackle this. And also, when it comes to the EU, their current ties with the President Kais Saied is enabling those actions and actively playing a huge part in making them happen. We have seen in the beginning of this month, Kais Saied have been rewarded with a memorandum of understanding promising the induction of around $1 billion into Tunisia's economy, where 10% of those, 10%, almost $100,000, will go into euros, will go into countering irregular migration and financing security apparatuses dealing with this issue. Those same security apparatuses that have been violating the human rights of these migrants. And all this aligns perfectly with the Italian Prime Minister Meloni's radical right-wing view over migration.
Now, still looking at this rule on migration, these are very serious, concerning allegations that are going on. I mean, Human Rights Watch and a lot of other organizations have spoken about this. Now, I'm coming to you, Firas, and this looking at the statement coming from President Kais Saied. There was a particular statement he made. I wonder how exactly has contributed to this migration policies that we're seeing and killing of black African migrants that we're witnessing in Tunisia.
Yeah, it is greatly noticed that the speech and the messages delivered by President Qais Said has contributed to this conflictual matter. But it is also important to indicate that discrimination and human rights aggression against Black African migrants or refugees are not occurring only in this period. It started mainly on 2011 with the 50 refugees who had a strike in the Shusha camp in the southern part of the country. I would also like to remind you that 3 Congolese students were stabbed by Tunisians in 2016, which led to the establishment of Organic Law number 50, on the elimination of racial discrimination in Tunisia. Yet, the efforts and the intention of the state to eliminate discrimination is not real. The speech that was delivered by Qais Said in February 2023, stating the conspiracy theory that there is a plan to replace the Tunisian population by African migrants, let's say, has led to a very populist movements rising within the political sphere. We've seen calls by the Nationalist Party calling for the mass deportation of refugees and migrants via the use of armed weapons. We have also seen the president declaring in multiple occasions via the Ministry of Interior Affairs and via the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that this whole dilemma is being oriented against Tunisia, and Tunisia is not a racist state in reality, but there are the legal norms that must be protected. It is important to remind that no human is illegal, and what the state has been conducting against migrants is severe and very, very alarming human rights violation. And even activists, Tunisian activists, had been stopped from intervening and providing hope for people in situation of distress.
Quite a very tragic situation, Firas. Now, I'd like to bring Bilal back into the conversation. You did mention this recent memorandum of understanding in passing during your earlier submission. The recent memorandum of understanding signed between the EU and Tunisia covers regular migration, economic development, and renewable energy. Now, how might this Human Rights Watch report influence or alter the implementation of this agreement, particularly in regards to migration? Because the whole world is on notice. There's also this talks of finance in Tunisia to the tune of 105 million euros. How do you do this when the exact security forces that are doing this, that are committing these abuses, will be financed from money from the European Union? Or is it that they just want to keep the migrants out of their borders regardless of how it's done? Just keep them out of European shores?
Exactly as you said, I want to be optimistic and say that this report might change the way the EU is approaching this issue. But sadly, it feels like, as we said before, it feels like the EU is trying to reward the president for all the human rights violations he's committing. And out of all the high-level EU state visits to Tunisia since February, because this is not new. It's been talked about. It's been shown. People have commented on it. High-level delegations have commented on it. But every high-level EU state visit to Tunisia since February does not mention any of these human rights violations, except maybe for the German delegation. So it feels again like this is a reward for President Qais, because we can see that we can see Prime Minister Meloni, who's been frequently visiting, advocating, and lobbying for this regime. It seems to be in par with all regimes' actions. As long as they create a buffer zone outside Europe's physical borders, they'll be okay with anything that happens.
What
feels
about the
like
African Union? I mean, Tunisia's on the African continent, they're part of the African Union. And I did see how the African Union responded strongly when he made those racist statements earlier this year. Is there anything they can do? Because it seems that even the Europeans that you typically expect to be the champions of European humanitarian values, human rights, they're on Kais Said's side and they're turning a blind eye to this just to keep migrants out of their borders. So what can the African Union do? What can civil society groups do to stem this tide and, give this migrants that have been through a lot some level of human dignity?
well, sadly, the actions of the EU and their dealings with the president is giving him enough ammunition to disregard anything that the Tunisian civil society or the international civil society or even the African Union would comment or say or try to do. Because as long as this big policeman of the world, the EU, is giving you a green light to your actions, then you wouldn't have to worry about anyone else. And that's very sad. So I feel like today, as Tunisian civil society, it's very important for us to voice out our not acceptance for whatever the EU is doing. It's important for us to advocate in Europe against all this support that Qais has been given, because as long as this European support is being given to Qais Said, change is not going to happen. And it's sadly, it's giving a signal that we have seen before, that as long as European intentions and whatever dictator would work upon them and around them, they'd be okay with that. It's a signal for aspiring dictators. As long as you work with the EU, mainly on migration or resources extortion, we will be okay.
All right, thank you so much, Bilal. I'm going to bring Firaj into this conversation. And earlier on, you talked about the fact that it's not just now, it's started, it's been going on for a very long time. So I wonder how the economic challenges or the political tension that we've also been seeing in Tunisia is also being linked to this migration problems. And I also want your take on the EU's funding to Tunisia, despite the human rights abuses, allegations that we have witnessed and the reports that we've heard.
Yeah, it is strongly linked. I would like to remind you that since 1968, Tunisia has been signing multiple memorandum of understandings with the EU, in which huge portions of the fundings were oriented to safeguarding borders. So this is not a new phenomenon. Qais Said is not the new president who is being rewarded by the EU in order to stop irregular migration. Yet this specific period is kind of critical because a lot of advancements have been made in regards of human rights field in Tunisia in the previous years, especially after the revolution. Yet Qais Said and his public speech, let's say, is very xenophobic, is very racist, and he is supported by the majority of the public for a sad reality and for I don't know which reasons, but this current phenomena is being made, let's say, by intention to cover the failure of economic and political policies of the current government after the failure of their negotiation with the FME, the IFM, and the support they are seeking and they are getting from the EU is kind of giving Qais Said a new legitimacy to put himself and the state of Tunisia on the international community while being totally disconnected from the region. And I also believe that the African Union did not take the necessary measures because, as far as I know, the African Commission has been reported about these violations since February 2023, and yet no declaration or no alert to the Tunisian state has been done. This is not the first time, and under Qais Said regime, it won't be the last.
I mean, if he does know that the African Union is all back and no bite, of course, and like Bilal said, it's given him the necessary ammunition to do and undo, because he has the backing of the European Union, who will do as he pleases. Now, back to you, Bilal, and I still want to stay on this European Union issue. Now, considering the seriousness of the reported human rights abuses that have been documented, should the 105 million euros in equipment and financing provided by the EU to Tunisia be contingent on a human rights impact assessment report? Or will that be dreaming? And what are the potential pros and cons of such an approach? Should it be tied to a human rights assessment report before they're given this financing? Or it's too late, or has that boat sailed already?
Again, yeah, as you said, it's kind of too late now, but maybe it's never too late, because that's not the only case here. We have, Qais Said have started a discourse that it's like the ice ball effect, the snowball effect. He started the discourse with simple words and ignited popular violence and reignited the case of racism in Tunis. And to stop that, you need more than asking the Tunisian government to have some regard to human rights, or else we will stop financing you. I feel like, yes, putting finances on hold until they make sure that Tunisian security apparatuses make sure that human rights are respected could be an important move forward. It could be at least a signal for us in the civil society and those who are fighting for the rights of those who can't fight. It will be a reminder that they're here, they care, and it's important for us to continue the work that we do.
Now, still talking about moving forward, Firas, what plans or initiative could be made to address this issue of this human rights abuses on migrants, or to even address illegal migration going on in Tunisia? And if it's not addressed, what impact will it have?
Well, I honestly don't know what we can do at this moment, because the Tunisian state do not have the proper finance to do repatriation as they want it and as they claim that what they are trying to do. They're just putting people between the border of Tunisia and Libya. They are leaving people for hunger. It's very, 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 very high heats in this time of the year. They do not provide them with any food, any water, any assistance. There are also claims that there are people currently dying in the desert. So repatriation, it's not an applied solution as the Tunisian state has always wished to do. And the reintegration of migrants, let's say, and refugees in Tunisia is not something that could be done under this regime. So I honestly don't know what solution can we provide for this conflict.
Thank you, Firas. Now, finally, Bilal, as we wrap up the conversation, how has the recent surge in migrants attempting dangerous sea voyages to Europe impacted Tunisia and its relationship with the EU? And some have argued that, if you take a hardline policy, it will discourage migrants from attempting this dangerous crossing, and that, it's people traffickers that take advantage of the misery of these migrants and trying to get to Europe. What is the best humane approach in addressing this migrant issues?
I mean, I believe in people's right of movement, and I don't think that that should be ever an issue. Or people will still try to move. You're only making it harder and riskier for them. But for those who want to migrate, they will still try to find the best ways to migrate. And whatever are those, when you start doing these these very heavy restrictions and make it way harder for them. You're giving space for human traffickers to actually open new channels that are even riskier than the one before. Because the story of migration isn't a story of the day. It's a story that happened with the beginning of times. People will still want to migrate. People will still want to change places, but move, maybe look for a better future. So this will not stop. What we want right now is for Europe to address its double standards, to hold its allies accountable for human rights violation, and support genuine democratic process in countries like Tunisia and Africa in general. It's time for Europe to move beyond its self-serving agenda and genuinely respect the rights and dignities of all nations and of all people, regardless of their geographic location or economic status. Because the struggle for democracy, human rights, and respect of people's rights to movement and to live where they want requires unwavering support from the international community, particularly from those who claim to champion these values. Solidarity with Tunisian activists and civil society in their work to help and protect migrants and asylum seekers is essential, as they are facing increasing threats and repressions. It's only through collective efforts and steadfast commitment to human rights that Tunisia will be able, and other nations, to overcome this wave of authoritarianism, racism, and to build a more inclusive, equal, and democratic society for maybe that would be more fitting for our people to live in.
Thank you so much, Bilal. I must say that there's really a whole lot of work to be done to protect the rights of, asylum seekers and migrants. See situations also in the United Kingdom where the court was talking about asylum seekers going to Rwanda. But thank you once again for sharing so much insight on this conversation, Bilal Farat, and also Firas Inja for joining us on this conversation.
Thank you.
And this is where we'll draw the curtains for today's edition of The Conversation. On the first half, we talked situations in Kenya, where protests have continued for a 3-day from Wednesday to Friday over the high cost of living, increased taxes, and the new Finance Act bill. We also see allegations on the police withholding number of people who have died within the protests. We just finished conversations in Tunisia, where we're seeing a large amount of attacks on Black African migrants. And of course, we're seeing a bond between the European Union and Tunisia and looking at the way forward. Thank you once again for joining us on The Conversation for today. Join us again next week. I am Rita Omodia.
And I'm Benga Burrow. See you next time on the program. Bye-bye.